Sometimes the people who stay quietly beside you end up changing everything, without ever saying a word. That week, I thought I was just sharing a room with a family friend. Simple, harmless. We'd known each other since we were kids. What could possibly go wrong? But nothing could have prepared me for the look in his eyes that night, or what happened when everything started to change between us. It began when my mom told me Alex was coming to stay. She made it sound casual, like it wouldn't affect me at all. "Just a few days," she said over the phone. "His university's closed for renovations and his parents are traveling. It'll be easier if he stays with us until things settle." I didn't even get a say in it. By the time I got home from campus that Friday, his duffel bag was already in the hallway. His spotless size 13 sneakers were parked by the stairs like they'd always been. There. I hadn't seen Alex in almost a year and a half, not since that awkward family barbecue where he barely looked up from his phone while I tried to make small talk with strangers. We were never close. He was a year older, always orbiting somewhere else, confident, popular, surrounded by people who laughed a little too hard at his jokes. So, imagine my surprise when I opened the door, sweaty from the bus ride, and found him sprawled on the couch like he owned the place. "Hey, Asher," he said with that trademark lopsided grin, arms tucked behind his head. "Miss me?" I rolled my eyes. "Didn't know I was supposed to." He laughed. "Come on, man. Don't be like that. Roomies for the week and it'll be fun." Roommates? Great, I wasn't used to sharing my space. I liked my quiet, my moody playlists, my routines, uninterrupted. Alex brought noise. Music thumping through the walls. Loud calls with friends I didn't know. A gym bag that somehow smelled like coconut and sweat. The first night was fine. Barely. Because he stayed in the guest room and I stayed in mine. But even then I could hear him talking while gaming, laughing at his own videos, singing along to songs I didn't recognize. Still, something about him felt different this time. Maybe it was how he looked. Taller, more grounded, more confident. His features had sharpened into something magnetic. His hair was longer, styled in that effortless way that probably took real effort. And his smile. It carried a warmth I didn't remember. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But then came the little things. When he brushed past me in the hallway and his hand grazed my back. When he walked around shirtless in the mornings, moving with careless ease. Or when he'd perch on the arm of the couch, his knee brushing my shoulder just enough to make me hyper-aware of his presence. None of it meant anything. That's what I told myself over and over. He was just Alex, friendly, teasing, the kind of guy who made everyone feel at ease. Still, something in the air had shifted. Not loud or obvious, quiet, like a hum beneath every moment. It showed up in small things, like when he walked into my room without knocking. "Sorry," he said, freezing when he saw me shirtless at my desk. "Didn't know you were studying." But he didn't leave. He leaned against the doorframe, half smiling. "You've been working out?" I blinked. "Not really." "Could have fooled me," he said, and walked off, leaving me staring at the screen, pretending to focus. I didn't get much studying done after that. The uncertainty messed with me most. I couldn't tell if he was just being friendly or if there was something else beneath it. Because this didn't feel like a joke, it felt real. That night, I lay in bed, headphones in, trying to drown out my thoughts. Through the wall, I could hear his soft, steady breathing. I closed my eyes, but his image kept slipping in. The way he smiled. The way he looked at me sometimes, like he saw more than I wanted him to. The next morning he was already in the kitchen, shirtless again, sweatpants hanging low on his hips. He looked up from his cereal and grinned. "Sleep okay?" I nodded, keeping my eyes on the kettle. He stretched lazily. "Think I had a dream about you." I froze. "What?" He laughed. "Relax, dude. You were just there. Don't even remember what it was about." I didn't reply. My face was already burning, and he knew it. After that, the house felt smaller. Not physically, but in a way that made every hallway feel tighter, every silence heavier. My room had always been my escape. Now every inch of it carried his shadow. It started small, like the Wi-Fi. "Dude, the signal in the guest room sucks," Alex complained one night, dropping onto my bed. "Yours is closer to the router. Mind if I crash?" That night he didn't wait for an answer. He just grabbed one of my pillows, leaned back, and smiled. "You're quieter than I remember." "It's chill." He stayed in my room that night, and the night after. His excuse? Bad Wi-Fi. At first I convinced myself it was temporary, but then his things started creeping in. His gym bag by my desk, his hoodie on my chair, his toothbrush next to mine. And that's when the closeness stopped feeling accidental. Alex had always been comfortable in his own skin, but now something about him made me feel unsteady. He moved with an ease I couldn't match. He filled every quiet space with his presence without even trying. One afternoon, I was lying on my bed pretending to read. Alex sat at the foot, scrolling through his phone. At some point, his leg brushed mine, just slightly. He didn't move or even look up, and I couldn't tell if it was deliberate or not, but it made my chest tighten. That night, I couldn't sleep. Nothing inappropriate, just thoughts that wouldn't stop. The way he laughed, the way he made every ordinary moment feel charged with meaning. I woke up early, restless. He was still asleep, calm and peaceful. For a moment, I just watched him and felt something heavy and unspoken stir in my chest. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, went to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. 15 minutes later, he appeared, barefoot, hair messy, leaning casually against the counter. "Why are you up so early?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. Maybe because sometimes being too close to someone makes it hard to breathe. He asked, voice rough from sleep. "Why are you up so early?" "Couldn't sleep," I mumbled, fumbling with the coffee machine, trying not to show how unsettled I felt. He reached above me for a mug, brushing past my back, just a second of contact, but it left a strange warmth lingering in me. He poured coffee, took a sip, and muttered, "Still bitter." "That's because you drown yours in sugar," I said evenly. He grinned. "That's not how bitterness works. It's perfect for you. You're such a weirdo." He nudged my shoulder lightly, laughing. I tried not to let it show how much I enjoyed the ease between us, how simple it all felt when he was like this. That evening, he walked into my room with his laptop under one arm and a bag of chips in the other. "Movie night," he announced, dropping onto my bed without asking. "Let me guess. You're watching something depressing again, right?" "It's not depressing," I said, sitting up as he opened his screen. "It's subtle," he said with a mock serious nod. "Right, subtle. So subtle everyone cries emotionally." Despite myself, I laughed. "Fine," he said. "We can watch something else." "No, it's okay." "I like your taste," I said. "It's different." "Good different." The word lingered heavier than I expected. We watched the film anyway, a slow, quiet indie movie I'd been saving. Halfway through, he leaned back and pulled the blanket over both of us. Our shoulders brushed, our legs shifted slightly, and every tiny movement felt amplified in the silence. When the credits rolled, neither of us moved. "That was better than I expected," Alex said quietly. His voice softened close. "Are you always this quiet?" I asked. "Only around people who take up all the space," he smirked. "You mean charming people?" "Sure," he chuckled. "Let's go with that." He stretched out, arms behind his head. "I'm sleeping here again," he said lazily. "I figured," I replied softly, noticing how small the room suddenly felt. Not claustrophobic, just filled. He drifted off not long after, and I lay there, eyes tracing the slow spin of the ceiling fan, wondering when everything between us had begun to feel different. Not wrong, just heavier. Our days started to fall into a rhythm. Alex and I moved through the house like two sides of the same current, drawn into the same rooms, the same pauses, the same silences. I'd wake up to find him sprawled across the couch or flipping through a book he'd never finish. We didn't talk about it, but something unspoken was there. Not romance, not attraction, but a kind of emotional gravity neither of us could ignore. Then, on Thursday night, something shifted again. We were sitting on the floor in my room, backs resting against the bed, empty dinner plates forgotten on the rug between us. Alex had just finished telling a ridiculous story about his old football coach nearly driving the team van into a ditch, complete with bad sound effects and worse impressions. I laughed harder than I had in weeks and leaned against him without thinking. He didn't move. When the laughter faded, we stayed there, quiet, breathing in sync. Then he said softly, "You've changed." "What?" "Since we were younger," he said, eyes catching the warm glow of the desk lamp. "You're different now. In a good way." I didn't know how to respond, so I reached for the leftover chips and pretended to be focused on the crumbs. But his gaze didn't leave me. It lingered, thoughtful. After a long silence, I asked, "Why do you really like hanging out in here?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "The Wi-Fi excuse. It's not like the guest room's that far." He hesitated, then spoke quietly. "I don't know. It just feels better here, calmer, less noise in my head." That stopped me. For all his easy charm and jokes, there was something raw in his voice now. He stared at the floor for a moment before saying, "Do you ever feel like you're always performing? Like there's this version of you people expect, and if you slip, they start asking questions?" His words hit harder than I expected, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. "Yeah," I said quietly. "All the time," he nodded slowly. "I don't feel that around you. Not even when it's quiet. Even when you look at me like you're trying to figure me out." "Maybe I am," I admitted softly. "And if you do?" I paused. The truth was I didn't know, so I said the only thing that felt honest. Then maybe we stop pretending we don't already care. The words hung there, fragile but real. He didn't reply right away. He just reached out and brushed the back of his hand against mine. A small, grounding gesture, one that spoke of trust, not confusion. We stayed like that for a long while, two people quietly realizing how much their friendship had come to mean. Eventually, he leaned his head back against the bed frame and exhaled. "I'm tired," he murmured. "Then rest here," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, here's fine." That night, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Somewhere between all the laughter, the teasing, and the quiet pauses, we'd found something steady, a kind of understanding that didn't need to be named. The next day, I thought he'd be out late. He'd mentioned a gym session and meeting his friend Adrian. "Don't wait up," he'd said, flashing that crooked grin before heading out. For the first time in days, the house was quiet. No background noise, no footsteps, just stillness. I curled up on my bed, dimmed the lights, and let myself breathe. Then I heard the faint jingle of keys. The door creaked open, and there he was, Alex standing in the doorway. "You said you weren't coming back tonight," I said, voice low. He hesitated. "Gym was closed." Adrian bailed. "I texted you." He stepped in, expression softer this time. "I should have knocked," he said. "It's fine," I replied automatically. The air between us shifted again, full of quiet understanding. Not tension, not fear, just something real. He smiled faintly, almost embarrassed. "I didn't mean to interrupt. You just looked peaceful when I walked in, like you could finally relax." I swallowed hard, surprised by how much that simple observation meant. For the first time in a while, I realized that maybe the honesty, the quiet, the lack of performance, was what I'd been missing all along. Not the noise, not the confusion, just this. A moment where being seen didn't feel like being judged. He sat slowly at the edge of the bed, leaving space between us. I felt the mattress shift under his weight, that quiet reminder that someone else was really there. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Do you do this often?" he asked, voice low. "Just sit like this when you think no one's around?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, sometimes." He stared ahead, thoughtful. "You didn't seem embarrassed," he said softly. I laughed, a weak sound. Trust me, I was. He shook his head gently. No, you didn't try to disappear. You just looked surprised I didn't know how to answer. Maybe because I hadn't panicked yet. Or maybe some small part of me wanted him to see me. Not the version I showed everyone else, but the quiet, unguarded one. The silence stretched between us, calm and strange. Then he shifted slightly closer, careful not to crowd me. I'm not going to lie, he said, voice rough but honest. It's okay, I whispered. Not in a bad way, he added quickly. Just different. Something in his tone softened me. His hand rested near mine on the blanket, not touching, just close enough to feel the quiet energy between us. He met my eyes, and for once he didn't look away. I like seeing you like this, he murmured. Calm, real. The words hung in the air, delicate, almost fragile. I didn't know what to say, so I just breathed, letting the moment settle. We didn't need to fill the silence. It said enough. He leaned back against the bed frame, a soft sigh escaping him. I'm glad I stayed, he said quietly. Me too, I whispered. And just like that, the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full, of understanding, of something unspoken but safe. When he looked at me again, there was a kind of warmth in his eyes. You look different, he said. I mean that in a good way. I didn't answer, but I could feel the change too. Something subtle, like peace finding a place it had been missing. We sat there a long time, not talking. Just existing in the same stillness, letting the quiet speak for us. Later, as he drifted to sleep sitting beside me, I watched the rise and fall of his breathing, steady, unguarded. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Morning came softly. Light crept across the floor, tracing slow patterns on the wall. For a moment, I forgot where I was until I saw him. Still there, calm, grounded. He opened his eyes slowly and smiled. Hey! Hey, I whispered back. He stretched, rubbing a hand over his face. What time is it? No idea, I said, smiling faintly. He chuckled, still half asleep. Feels too early to care. The simplicity of it, the ordinary peace of the moment, felt rare. As we made coffee later, the morning felt different. Our words were fewer, our silences softer. Every glance, every small exchange felt like it carried a quiet truth we both understood but didn't need to name. At one point, he looked at me over his mug. You know, he said thoughtfully, this house felt cold when I first got here. But now, he paused, meeting my eyes. Now it feels like somewhere I can breathe. I didn't trust my voice enough to reply, so I just nodded, looking down at my cereal. That afternoon, his bag sat near the door, and the same one he'd meant to pack, but he never reached for it. You're staying? I asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled, a little shy. If that's okay, I nodded. Yeah, of course, he exhaled, relieved. Good. We didn't need to label what this was. Not friendship, not something else, just a moment of clarity between two people who finally felt understood. And for now, that was enough. Because sometimes the lesson isn't about defining what you feel. It's about allowing yourself to feel it at all.